السلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we talked about Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, and the reason why we're speaking about this because the majority of those who are upon At-Turq al-Sufiya, the deviant sect called Sufiya, or in these days and times, Jama'at al-Tabligh. As Jama'at al-Tabligh are the contemporary Sufis of today. As Shaykh al-Imam al-Albani mentioned and said, Sufiyatun Asriya. As he said, Jama'at al-Tabligh, he described them as the contemporary Sufis of today. You'll find that a lot of their followers, especially a lot of them even here in America, glorify and raise the level of Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. They call him Jalani. They say here in America, Jalani. The correct way to pronounce it is al-Jilani, because he was from the town called Jilan. At any rate, Abdul Qadir al-Jilani is from the heads that they so-called glorify. And they even make dua to him, which is polytheism. They make dua to him and they raise his affair above what he was given of those who are from the ulama and the righteous. That's the reason why we're speaking about it. And we're also given an example of how istighatha or shirk takes place in the ummah, al-ummatul Muhammadiyah, the ummah of Muhammad. Even though people think that while you study Kitaab At-Tawheed, these affairs are not taking place. They are taking place. They're taking place amongst the Muslims in the name of Islam, in the name of them having long beards, and a lot of them wearing clothes like Muslims, and they're committing the most evilest act that can come to one's mind. Or rather, it is the most evilest act in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemned in His book, even though they say they're Muslim. So you find that Shaitan came to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, like we talked about before, in a dream or a vision, and he said, and you'll find that he's seen someone calling out to him, in which you would think it was put as an image that it was Allah, and it wasn't. He says, "Oh Abdul Qadir," he says, "I'm your Lord." Notice he didn't say Allah. He said, "Ana Rabbuk." He said, "For verily," and it says in the narration, it says that he said to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, and he said that I have asqatu anka al-fara'id. I've removed from you all obligations. Wa abahtu laka al-muharramat. And everything that is unlawful is now allowable for you. To the point where Abdul Qadir al-Jilani realized that this person was, or this image, or this vision, or this dream was not Allah. Rather, it was who? Shaitan. Shaitan, in which he said to him, "Ikhsa ya adu Allah." He said, "May you be humiliated, O enemy of Allah." And he said, when he said that, the image started to deteriorate and it went away. Until Shaitan said to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani that فَتَنْتُ بِهَذِي الْفِعْلَ سَبْعِينَ صَدِيقًا. And Shaitan even said, he says, this, what I did to you, this trick, we're talking about the unseen Shaitan that you can't see. Said to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, he said, this trick, or what I just pulled on you, I was able to fool 70 Sadiq, meaning the people who are upon Sufiya, or people who are upon this type of way. They fell into it. That's why you'll find the majority of the Sufis, what did they say? They have reached the level of what? Of so-called surety, where all of the obligations and duties have been what? Released and removed from them. So they don't have to pray, they don't have to fast, they don't have to do anything anymore. Notice Abdul Qadir al-Jilani had what? Was intelligent enough to know that this was a satanic trick that Shaitan utilized, in which he had what? He was all aware that this was a plot that Shaitan tried to utilize in order to what? Make him fall in some type of misguidance. So this story, like we said, even what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, he said this took place. And a lot of the stories he said, and a lot of stories which are true. Now listen to what he goes on to say. He said even to some of the Egyptians who made Hajj, he said that they used to sacrifice for Sayyid al-Badawi. Who's Sayyid al-Badawi? That we'll talk about in a minute. So this is a conclusion to show that some of these people who are righteous and some of these people who are not righteous. It's Ahmed ibn Ali al-Badawi was somebody who was deemed to be righteous. And you'll find that the people that they want prefer, and they even make hajj towards the grave of Badawi, and they also worship the grave of Badawi, not realizing the history of this individual, and which we'll speak about momentarily, inshallah. That one of the Shaykh al-Islam mentioned said that I slaughtered for Badawi, and one of them said, and that I had slaughtered a sacrifice, or offered as a sacrifice one time. And I said upon the sacrifice, that animal, he said, "Ala dhabihati li ahlillah." He says, upon the sacrifice for the people of Allah. When he was slaughtering for what? That particular person, or so-called wali. He says to the point, he said, I did it one time, then I left it off. Or I was late. Meaning at the time when I usually used to do it. That I was late for doing it. He says, so it came to me at night, he says, a camel. And it opened up its mouth and it attacked me and it tried to eat me. He said, when I had what? Saved myself. And it kept doing this to me until I slaughtered for other than Allah. So I sacrificed the animal for other than Allah. Until I sacrificed for Badawi. And these are from the games that the shaitan plays around with human beings. That he overpowers some people in order to what? Make them fall inside of polytheism. So this is exactly what Allah Ta'ala is mentioning. That shaitan has no power. Those who believe in upon their Lord, they put their trust. Verily his power is over those who take him as a wali, meaning the shaitan. And those who set up partners with him in his worship. So shaitan has some type of power and domination over them. So now it goes on to say, he says, وَأَمَّا أَئِمَّةُ الصُّوفِيَّةِ وَالْمَشَايِخِ الْمَشْهُورُونَ الْقُدَمَاءِ. This is what he goes on to say. As for the A'imma al-Sufiyya, and those famous type of imams or so-called mashayikh, so-called, as they think, the Sufiyya, however, they are righteous, no doubt. From them is Al-Junayd ibn Muhammad, and also likewise Abdul Qadir Jilani, and those who are similar to them. He says, on which they have raised them above their levels, and they have taken to the point, like we said, they started to make dua to them, and other than Allah. And if you look to the Sufiyya, Ma'ahad Shaykh al-Jalil, how they made him an object of worship, and to the point where they even make tawaf, they go around his grave, and make salat to them, and slaughter for him, and make istighatha to him. All that in which, like we said, is to show exactly what's taking place amongst the Muslims, how much they have gone deeper and deeper inside of misguidance we're witnessing today. For what about now? Those who are from, those who worship Ahmed ibn Ali al-Badawi. Who is al-Badawi? That we'll save for our next class. But Ahmed al-Badawi, he was Shi'i, Fatimi, Ismaili, Alawi, which we'll talk about inshallah. Naam, he was Ismaili, Batini, Shi'i, Fatimi. He was Fatimiyun, Fatimi, Shi'i, Alawi, Batini. And one of the most highest forms of misguidance. He had all those atrocities formed in him, and despite of that, the people make dua to him, which we'll talk about. The people show just how people just follow behind what other people are doing. They don't even investigate, nor do they care to investigate. Rather, they just do and follow behind what's a tradition, and just do it and go along with what everyone else is doing. Not realizing that this person you're invoking, number one, is polytheism. It doesn't justify whether he's righteous or unrighteous. But what makes it worse is now you're asking someone who's deemed to be what? Those who are from the enemies of the religion of Islam and the enemies of Allah. For you'll find that, in which we'll discuss next week or next class, inshallah, Sunday, of who Ahmed ibn Ali al-Badawi, or Sayyid al-Badawi as they call him. I think it was his grandfather. Then you have Ahmed's son was Ahmed, I think. Ahmed Ali is Sayyid al-Badawi, or Sayyid al-Badawi was the father, I think. But anyway, al-Badawi, we'll talk about who he was. Class, inshallah. Like I said, notice and keep in mind, he was from the Fatimi, he was Batini, Shi'i, Alawi, Fatimi, And he was from the tribe of what they call Al-Abid or Al-Ubaidah, in which was originally in Morocco, in an area called Fes. And we'll talk about, inshallah, what happened. How the Khulafa wanted to remove the Shia from the land, and they drove them out. So they migrated to Mecca in order to so-called flee away from their so-called quote-unquote oppression, what they were under, but what was actually correct, to drive out the evil beliefs of the Shia. As they went to Mecca, and they started to hide in the form of Sufiya. So they started to hide behind it, not realizing that their whole plot was to bring back the ideologies of the Alawiyin, of Batini, Shi'i methodology back to the people, and they were just waiting for the right time to do it. Then upon that, you'll find that individual, Ahmed ibn Ali al-Badawi, that he went to Egypt, and that's where he died. But we'll talk about that in more detail next class, inshallah. But just returning back to the book, everyone, that you'll find, like we said, in regards to what happened with Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, that the people direct their worship to him. And you still find the Sufis to this day doing exactly in which the ulama mentioned and what they warn the Muslims from. For you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwas, if you look in your books, that Allah Ta'ala mentioned about this type of act of making dua to other than him. That is an affair that one who is more astray, the one who invokes besides, the one that cannot answer him all the way up to the day of resurrection. So Allah Ta'ala is establishing that none of these things that are invoked besides him, whether it be a rock or a tree or the sun or the moon and the stars or a human being. Rather, we talked about that the voices that the people hear in those graves are shayateen. That they come about in order to be as a trial and a test for the person who is worshiping them. Or the jinn. So they either worship in the shayateen or the jinn in actuality. So you'll find even in the ayats that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this book, in so many different ayats, that everything that is worshipped besides him, as we talked about on many occasions, we said that everything on the day of resurrection is going to flip and turn against the person on the day of resurrection. No matter what you worship or who you worshiped, all of it is going to flip and become enmity, where that thing is going to deny and reject the one worshiping them. On the day of resurrection, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathers, and if you worship the sun is going to reject you worshiping it. If you worship Jesus, the son of Mary, as we know, Jesus, the son of Mary, is going to reject you worshiping him. If you worship Uzair is also going to reject you worshiping him. And if you worship the angels and the malaika, likewise the angels are going to reject you worshiping them. Even to the point, Shaitan himself, or the devil himself, in which we know some people worship these days, him, Iblis. He is even going to flip and become enemy against you on the day of resurrection. All of these ayats are mentioned in the book of Allah. And Allah Ta'ala gives us in detail, accurately, what's going to take place on the day of resurrection. In detail, and it's all intact, the information. There's a lot of people think of what takes place in the Bible, what is all the different wordings and the different types of alterations and the different types of errors that is creaked in the book. Why would you want to take those stories all over the authentic story, where Allah Ta'ala has given you exactly what's going to take place in detail on the day of resurrection? From those affairs is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah here, in Surah Al-Ahqaf, in which I don't know whether or not it's in your books that it's written completely. It says, none of them will answer on the day of who cannot answer the invocation of the one calling on them all the way up to the day of resurrection. And they are totally heedless and unaware of the one invoking them. And when the people are gathered on the day of resurrection, he said they will become enemies. And they will reject and deny them worshiping of them. All these different ayats that we talked about before. There's so many different ayats that we don't have time to mention all of them. A person, like we said, will say, Tayyib, I have worshipped other than Allah. I called on the dead. I called on my dead mother. Or I called on my dead father. And I called to them and I prayed to them and I heard a voice. and they called and they answered me. Keep in mind, like we said, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, all of these are from the tricks of Iblis. All of them are from the deception and the tricks of Iblis himself, that he utilizes in order to get the people to fall in polytheism. Shaitan answers, or you'll find that some of the people say that the dua, when I supplicated to these people or these affairs or these objects, all of them answered me. My call was answered. I called on Jesus, the son of Mary. He answered me. I asked him to make my wife pregnant. She became pregnant. Either, like we talked about, either Allah Ta'ala will answer the dua of the person, or at the time of what was preordained, it so-called happened that you made a dua at the time where Allah preordained for you to have that particular thing. So in actuality, it was Allah who answered it. So these affairs take place in order for a person to know that Allah Ta'ala answers the supplication. But however, He puts a test on these people and their errors and also their misguidance in order for them to become deeper and deeper inside of it, as a test and trial for them, to lead them more astray. And so all these are mentioned in the book of Allah, every single last one of them. For example, Allah Ta'ala talked about on the day of resurrection, He's going to bring the angels and ask them. He says, وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ يَقُولُ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ أَهَؤُلَاءِ إِيَّاكُمْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ أَنْتَ وَلِيُّنَا مِن دُونِهِمْ بَلْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ الْجِنَّ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُم بِهِم مُؤْمِنُونَ فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يَمْلِكُ بَعْضُهُم لِبَعْضٍ نَفْعًا فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يَمْلِكُ بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ نَفْعًا وَلَا ضَرًّا وَنَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ النَّارِ الَّذِي كُنتُم بِهَا تُكَذِّبُونَ الَّتِي كُنتُم بِهَا تُكَذِّبُونَ, as it says in the ayah. The Allah Ta'ala says that He will bring even the angels and ask them. He says, are you the ones who they used to worship and turn their worship towards? And the angels are going to reject it and say, you are wali. You are their wali. They're protected besides us and besides other than them. Rather, they used to worship the jinn. And majority of them they used to believe in. So the majority of the people you'll find of what they're doing in this world are all shayateen and jinn that they're worshiping. They're not worshiping the angels and they're not worshiping the human beings as they think. Rather, in actuality, what is taking place is mere worship of the shayateen and the jinn, who have special abilities to deceive the people, either by speaking to people, or bringing objects to them, or bringing certain things to them, to make them think what they're doing is justified. Not realizing in reality, Allah Ta'ala had talked about on the day of resurrection, as we said in the last chapter, saying of what we said in the last ayat in the chapter that we said previously, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring forth everyone on the day of resurrection and the shayateen, and talked about how they had utilized one another and enjoyed one another, of how everyone was taking advantage of another, until Allah Ta'ala said that all of them are going to be in hell. Every single last one of them. The jinn and those who used to what? Call on them, and all of those who used to worship the jinn and who used to utilize the shayateen to do their dirty work. Allah Ta'ala said He's going to gather all of them and put them in the hellfire, which is to let one know, even though the shayateen are the ones who's speaking, they're also the ones who's going to be a reason for them going to the hellfire for this type of usage. So calling on human beings and you hearing a voice answer you, in actuality it is an unseen jinn or shaitan leading the person into more misguidance. So you'll find that the ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned is said in regards to what takes place with the jinn, and also likewise those different ma'budat, that which will flip on the day of resurrection. Allah ta'ala says in Surah Yunus, I think it's in Surah Yunus, where Allah ta'ala says in His book, the يَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ نَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا مَكَانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَشُرَكَاؤُكُمْ فَزَيَّنَّا بَيْنَهُمْ فَقَالَ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ إِيَّانَ تَعْبُدُونَ. As we talked about last class on the day of resurrection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring everyone on the day of resurrection and say, the day we'll gather all of them together, and we'll say to them, meaning those of the idols and the people who used to worship them in this world, halt and stay in your place, you who you used to worship. And He says, and we will divide and separate between them, meaning we will lay down the truth. their partners and their idols, or the human beings that they used to worship in this world, were saying, it was not us who you used to worship. Verily, we were totally heedless of you what? Calling on us and worshiping us. So Jesus, the son of Mary, also likewise on the day of resurrection, Allah Ta'ala mentions that. Allah mentions that clearly in his book, where Allah Ta'ala will bring even Jesus and his mother in front of the people. All this is clear evidences and proofs that, inshallah, what we're upon is correct. Because Allah has given us detail what's going to take place on the day of resurrection. He's going to bring the angels. He's going to even bring Iblis, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything. And he bring Jesus, the son of Mary, and his mother, and put them in front of the people. And say to them, Akuntum. He says, as Allah Ta'ala says about Isa ibn Maryam, وَإِذْ قَالَ عِيسَى ibn Maryam, أَأَنْتَ قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ اتَّخِذُونِي وَأُمِّيَ إِلَهَيْنِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ قَالَ سُبْحَانَكَ مَا يَقُولُ لِي أَن يَكُونَ مَا لَيْسَ لِي بِحَقٍّ مَا يَكُونُ لِي أَنْ أَقُولَ مَا لَيْسَ لِي بِحَقٍّ إِن كُنتُ قُلْتُهُ فَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ تَعْلَمُ مَا فِي نَفْسِي وَلَا أَعْلَمُ مَا فِي نَفْسِكَ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ أَعْلَمُ الْغُيُوبِ ما أمرت لهم ما قلت لهم إلا ما أمرتني به أن نعبد الله ربي وربكم. Allah Ta'ala says in this book that he's going to bring Jesus and his mother and say to them, did you tell the people to take you as deities besides me? So Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection is going to establish the truth and lay it down and nullify falsehood. He said, did you tell the people to take you and your mother as deities of worship besides me? As Allah Ta'ala will say. And Jesus will say, glory be to you. It is not for me to say that which is not my haqq. It's not my right. If I said it, you most indeedly know it. You know what's in myself, I don't know what's in yours. Verily you are the knower of the unseen. So Jesus, the son of Mary, is going to deny his worshiping of what? Of the people on the day of resurrection. So this is the most ultimate disgrace, that a person be in this world thinking that he's doing something correct, and on the day of resurrection it flipping into what? Enmity and rejection. And also likewise pertaining to the Sufiya. And also those from the righteous of Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. And also from other than them, all of them will come on the day of resurrection, and that love that they used to have in this world will flip and become enmity, and it will become rejection. Even the angels, the sun, anything in this world that's worship besides Allah, Allah will bring it on the day of resurrection and establish the proof. Is this with who? Or did you command the people to worship you? And Allah Ta'ala will establish the argument where that particular object of worship will totally reject their what? The people worshiping them. In which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala said, in order to establish them, which what everyone, this is the most worst of misguidance. That what you were doing in this world, and then you find out ultimately what you were doing was totally incorrect. And it was a waste of time, which is the most ultimate of humiliation and the most ultimate disgrace, in which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is warning in his last final revelation that this is what's going to take place on the day of resurrection. That everything that is worship and associated as partners with him, all the love and the connection that you think you used to have in this world is going to be reversed and become an enemy or an enemy against you on the day of resurrection. So for your find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, like we said in this ayah, why in the chapter did the Shaykh of the Imam Muhammad Abdul Wahab put this in the chapter? What reason, everyone? Why? Because it's mentioned about what? What's the key word in the ayah if you look at your books? Surah Al-Ahqaf. If you look at your books, why did he put this ayah as a chapter and the ayah in the chapter? Why? For what reason? Why was this ayah put in the chapter of Istighatha? Why? Calling meaning what? Put everything together. Why we talk about Istighatha? Exactly. If you look in your books in the chapter Surah Al-Ahqaf, the reason why I put this in the chapter because he was speaking about dua. And Istighatha is a what, everyone? It's a type of dua. So even though he put the ayah in the chapter pertaining to supplication, we said Istighatha is what, everyone? It's a type of supplication. So any type of ayah that's talking about supplication, in Allah condemning the one who directs supplication to other than Him is exactly and correctly an ayat which is perfect, to be utilized as a dalil or evidence of proof that istighatha is only for Allah specifically. And that's the reason why I put it in the chapter. Is it clear so far, everyone? Keep bringing them to class. Just because they might not understand now, they will eventually start understanding. Trust me. So that's the reason why, like we talked about, of why he put this in the chapter. Then we'll mention the last ayah and we'll stop, inshallah. Right, what about the next ayah? And we'll read it. Who is the one who answers the muttar? The one who's in a state of adversity. And if he supplicates to him, he removes his evil. And he makes you successors in the earth. Is there a deity along with Allah? Very little do you take heed. We'll stop here, inshallah. So I don't want to make the lesson too long. We'll stop here and we'll continue Sunday. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions about the lesson? Keep bringing them to class. The problem, the most important thing is consistency.